Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and this is the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, the music podcast on where I interview singers and musicians from genres of black music: gospel, jazz, blues, old school classic soul, old school hip hop, today's hip hop and R&B, Caribbean, Latin, Afrobeat, Afro-Latina, blue-eyed soul, disco, go-go, line dances, and the Lost 45s. So come with me as I take you on to a trip to the destination genre of black music right now on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Legal Shield is a proud sponsor of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. If you've been involved in any types of accidents, have you been a victim of a computer fraud scam or identity theft? Have you been in a dispute with your landlord or tenants? If your loved one dies and didn't write up a will for you and for your family, or if you need help by opening up your small business, give Legal Shield a try. Visit their website at LegalShield.com and tell them you heard it here on the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Do it today. You'll be glad you did. Welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience. I'm Sam Wilson Jr., and I have a special guest on my show. And this lady that I'm about to introduce has served in the U.S. Army. She is a mother of 2 autistic children. She is the founder of Supported Minds, a neurodiversity affirming organization which takes care of families of autism, mental illness, and helps broken families. It also helps through coaching, education, and community empowerment. She is also the host of Cracking the Spectrum, Unveiling Velour, Skylar Network Power Hour, and Optimize My Life talk radio show. I am very delighted that she's on my show, and we first met on the Alignable Network event meetings. And we was put in the chat room, and I see her face. I know she's been through a lot. So on this episode of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast, I'm continuing that subject on songs that is dealing with social issues. So please help me welcome to the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. She is a veteran. She is a mother of 2 autistic children, and she still looks good at the ripe old age of 45. Her name is Mary Stanley. Hi,
Thank
Mary.
you.
How are you?
I am great. I'm surviving the weather. We are in a bipolar world with our weather right now in Minnesota. So 1 minute it's 20 degrees and it's lightly snowing. The next it drops to -20 and whiteout conditions.
All righty. Well, first of all, welcome to my show. Glad to have you here. And I've been thinking about you all of 2025. And I had to say to myself, I gotta call Mary Stanley and see how she's doing. Cause when I looked at your profile on Alignable, when we first met on the Alignable Network event meetings, I said to myself, I can see through your eyes and face, and you've been through all that pain. And I said to myself, I gotta interview her because we can do an episode on songs that is dealing with social issues. Everything's been happening now from ICE to all the wars that I've been seeing on the news, from Vietnam to right now with Israel fighting with Palestine and Gaza.
And then
And
you've
Iraq.
got, Greenland and that thing going on, Venezuela. And it's the
hmm
40th anniversary of Desert Storm.
Yes, 40th anniversary of Desert Storm. And I would like to dedicate this episode to the U.S. Armed Forces, for those who have served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, National Guard. This episode goes out to you. Thank you for your service and thank you for protecting us. And and I can tell you that my late father, Samuel Wilson Sr., and my maternal grandfather, John Henry Thomas, and his cousin, Clyde Hewlett Bowles, and his in law, Astor Wilson Sr., they both served in the armed forces. And my uncles, Walter Wilson and Joseph Wilson, and their in law, my uncle Carl Thomas, they all served in the Korean War. So that this goes out to them. And I'm very delighted that you're here on my podcast. So, as always, America doesn't know who you are, the world doesn't know who you are, but when they see you wearing that uniform, they know who you are, protecting our country and protecting a world from all the wars that we've been through for centuries. So, I'm very delighted to hear. And so, let us begin, shall we? Now, where were you born?
I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. I remember back in 2019 during our Sunday school Black History workshop when I heard of the Black Wall Street. I'd never heard of that before. It was never printed in our history books, not even Black history. It was never talked about. So,
No, but it
Tulsa,
was kind of
Oklahoma.
something, Black Wall Street's something that's kind of new and it's becoming
Hmm.
more prominent. I've got friends who are on the board with that.
Mm. Yes. Yes. So when you mentioned Tulsa, Oklahoma, I was thinking about that Black Wall Street, and that was something new to me. And
It's
especially,
kind of interesting about that, how small areas, rural areas, things, places you would never, you'd think like, Black Wall Street would be coming from Atlanta, Georgia, or from Michigan, Detroit area, New York City, not from some, Hobunk town in Oklahoma, honestly.
yes, yes, very new. Now, were any of your relatives have served in the military?
I have family that served every generation. So my family came here from Germany. So in 1907, I actually found my family's book that you get when you come over here with along with your citizenship paperwork, all that stuff. And so during World War II, I had family on both sides of the war.
Mm,
And
well,
the biggest thing for me was growing up with two great uncles that served in World War II, and one of them actually helped liberate um, Dachau. And for the longest time, we knew he liberated a concentration camp. We knew what they were, but it was actually learning about it as I got older before he passed away about the smells and what life was like and seeing these kids and how it just stuck with him. And he always said, it's there's you're gonna experience something that you're never gonna be able to get rid of.
mm. Well, first of all, my condolences goes out to you. And again, we thank your family for your service and for protecting us. Now, which high school did you go to?
I actually went to the same high school. I'm actually a year older than our Department of Defense, Peter Hegseth.
Oh,
I went to Forest Lake Senior High.
oh. And which college did you go to?
I went to American Intercontinental University, and this is back in the early 2000s when I was in the military, and I went online. So I just got a degree in business management because they only offered a few courses virtually at the time. Now you can get everything online, but then it was
Mm,
still, so it was all about, marketing and learning how to start a business that I never thought was ever going to be relevant. It was just something for me to do.
mm. And what was your major in college?
It was financing and marketing.
Mm, okay. Now, who did you want it to be when you grow up?
I wanted to be GI Joe. Originally, I wanted to be a paramedic in the helicopters, and I've always never had a backup plan. My plan was always to be in the military. And so when a friend of mine, this his dad was that job. And he goes, you need to join the military. And I got lucky because when I signed my paperwork at 17 and my grandma's permission and good grades, because she was my guardian at the time, the man that did the job retired 5 minutes before I signed my paperwork. So when he sat down and went through the list of jobs I qualified for, this just popped up.
Mm, wow. And growing up, what were some of your favorite radio stations?
So I was big into country, old school country, but then I had the mix of I love music. So I'm irregardless from Gregorian chants to the Elvis Presley, still to this day, big Elvis Presley fan, to the hip hop with the TLC and Paula Abdul, to I got really big into like what's it called? You had Tupac, you had Biggie, and then you had Run DMC.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
the what's his name had just passed away not too long ago. He did a lot of movies. He was with a lot with like LL Cool J and them guys.
Oh, okay.
Run DMX or DMX.
DMX,
Rough
yes,
Riders.
DMX.
That was my
Mm-hmm.
actually Rough Riders was one of my anthems when I was in the military.
Mm.
Every time
Okay.
I start getting nervous, I'd play that. And
Oh,
keeps me hyped.
wow. And growing up, who were some of your favorite black singers? You mentioned Run DMC,
Yeah,
TLC, Tupac, Biggie,
yeah,
DMX.
Tupac, Aretha Franklin. Um, I had big bands, a lot of 50s music. I can't think of the names, but the music.
Mhm.
I'm still in our house. My kids got confused because they're learning then and now. I still play records. Frankie
So, in other
Valli was one
words,
of them.
yeah, so in other words, you got your 45s and your LPs while the youngsters either got their CDs and now streaming on their
And my
smartphones.
kids still, we still play. They like records too. My son, his go-to music is the old 50s music. The Righteous Brothers, a big one in our house. That's one of the
Hmm.
bedtime music that we go to, that they puts on by himself. And that's the one thing I love about music is that,
Hmm.
especially with special needs kids,
Hmm.
it's a great tool. One, to help them get momentum in life, but and get them moving and going. Like mom finds the most obnoxious boy bands she can find. Usually it ends up being Backstreet Boys
Hmm.
or New Kids on the Block to wake them up because it bugs the crap out of them.
Hmm.
But like the Righteous Brothers and things like that to go to bed. The Lion Sleeps Tonight's a very big one in our house.
Hmm. And how old were you when you went into the military?
I was 17, junior in high school. I did National Guard when I started, and I did split service. So by that, I did boot camp my junior, senior year, and I did my
Hmm.
training after I graduated my senior year.
And how many years have you served in the U.S. Army?
A total of 15.
Wow. Well, again, thank you for your service and thank you for protecting us.
Hey, I enjoy every minute of it.
Okay. Now, when I was looking at your alignable thing, and here's a quote, and I'll read it out in that quote. I survived the silence. Now I'm leading others to speak and be seen. Please share with our audience what that quote was about in your own words.
So I created that tagline and that quote. That's actually I created that a couple years ago, and it has a double meaning. So I created it first for veterans and first responders, especially veterans, because I was part of the Adopt a Soldier program when it was I create helped create that program, and it was designed to help suicide rates in boot camp by the community coming in and adopting the soldiers during holidays so they had somewhere to go. And so a lot of us we learn how to bury everything. In our communities, our homes, when crap hits the fan, they automatically expect us to endure it, figure out a solution, fix the problem. And especially at home, you don't get that rest break. And things just keep piling on. We're dealing with, and you never speak up. We never speak, or we don't unbury because we're afraid if we unbury, we're going to lose it all.
Mhm.
You know, and getting them to civilians to understand we don't always have the answer. Y'all can figure it out. You survived without us for so long. Now figure it out. And the other end is for, kids on the spectrum, especially. It's they live in a world where they are always talked at. They're never talked to. Professionals talk to at them about them like they're not even there. Just because they're nonverbal doesn't mean they don't have ears to hear you with.
Right.
And two, it's all about listening to the nonverbal cues and understanding them and allowing them to speak in a way that works for them. And understanding that, when your kid's been nonverbal and starts, like my son, for instance, didn't start speaking fully until he was 5. When a baby starts talking for the first time, you celebrate everything they say. When truck comes out wrong or they say in the counter, you're like, great, he's speaking. But when your 5-year-old starts speaking, you correct them. Professionals correct them. Everybody corrects them. Why are they going to want to talk? And one of the facts is we talk about suicide awareness. Well, in the autistic and neurodiverse world, the average age of first starting to contemplate suicide is 6 to 8 years old. The average age of the first time, if not successful, of attempting to commit suicide is the age of 10. A 6-year-old should never want to think they want to die. A 10-year-old should never want to try to do that. But that's the world they live in. And it's getting them to be able to, people to see them as a person and let them express who they are and let them talk and understand they're not little toys to be created. They're not Stepford kids. They are, all kids are monsters. All kids are psychopaths. But the best part is those kids that are monsters and psychopaths solve their own problems and they're going to go away and move out of your house. It's your Stepford kids that can't think for themselves that are never going to be independent.
Well, it's like the old saying, we can't solve this overnight or
No,
in 24 hours. It takes time.
it does.
It really does. Takes time. Now, as a mother of 2 children who are autistic, please share with our audience of what you've been through.
So it started out with having a kid that I thought was OCD. Being in the military, OCD was great. His sister's a walking disaster, and she literally, think of Pigpen, that is her. She can walk through a room and it just turns into a disaster just by her walking. And he was at 6 months lining up toys in perfect straight lines, color coding them. Very neat, very organized. I didn't think anything of it. And then he stopped talking. And from there, a friend of ours that was helping my daughter, because she was sensory issues, closed, and we knew she was already on the spectrum, but it was mild. She was talking, I had help. But my son was so severe because he'd bang his head on the floor. He stopped talking. He was just a very locked in, very angry little boy. And so at the age of 4, when we had him tested and diagnosed and all the stuff done, I was told that if I did not have him in 40 hours of traditional ABA therapy, which means I drove him an hour, dropped him off, and then brought him back. And that's not adding speech and OT and all the other therapies. That if I didn't do this regimen and never see my kid other than to go to bed, then by the time he was 6, 7, 8 years old, you'd have to have him institutionalized because he would be out of control and a danger to himself and others. I am one of the reasons why the Minnesota Autistic Center no longer does your assessment reading in person. I was not nice. My voice went very well. And I told them where to stick it because you can't predict the stability and mental health and where a kid's going to be that many years at that young of an age, and that's when I started of learning what autism was, because before that I really didn't understand it. And it was, looking at schools and putting them in preschool. And my when he was 4 years old, he bit another kid, which all 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds do. It's normal. But then all of a sudden the school labels him a danger because he bit somebody. I go, well, if he didn't have a label, would you still do it? Well, no, it's normal. I go, so how is it different? And that's when I learned and saw firsthand the double standard that exists for these kids and how they're expected, and why is it every kid who has a label is expected to behave better than the average kid? They're not allowed to make mistakes. They're not allowed, and that's all fear. And the more I talked to parents, the more I did, the more I grew.
You know, every time I hear this on the news about autism, and especially kids, it really breaks my heart just to see those things. You mean your
Hmm.
son hanging through a wall? I'm just like, oh. And
But
I
the
was
good,
thinking to myself, in case if he dies, I was like, hang through a wall. Oh,
the thing is once I learned what this was and I sat down with him and I taught him mind and body and taught him to understand what was going on and taught him at a different level. We have been a year since he's had an actual meltdown. Don't get me wrong, he's a little monster. He's had temper tantrums. But for the most part, I would take him to the grocery store and go shopping with him now. He's semi-verbal. He's progressing and enjoying life. I almost freaked out. I didn't think I could get on the show today because my son took my computer and adjusted the language on it. It was actually written in Mansk, which is in not quite a Mongolian type language.
no, okay. Yes,
So
there's some
there
things
is hope.
yes, there is hope. There is hope. And like I said earlier, you've been through a lot,
I have
and I
been.
hope everyone is watching this episode, because not only we're going to entertain but also educate. And to all those families out there, even if you're not in the military and you've gone through those same situations, and everyone who's watching or listening to this program, I urge you to listen to Mary's testimony. And let me tell you, it ain't no fairy tale. This thing
No,
is real, which I'm going to get to the next question. But to talk about your organization that you founded called Supportive Minds, please share with our audience on what your organization that you have created and how many years was your organization was in existence.
so I've changed names a couple different times because I'm still
Mhm.
learning. I haven't found one. But I've been doing this for 6 years professionally, 8 non-professionally. And so I created Supportive Minds, and we've always been growing and growing. And the reason I changed the name now is because I'm not just a specialist anymore. I don't just help families, because what I do, I don't work with the kids. I teach you as an adult, as a parent, how to work with your kid, how to understand your child, how to help them and work with them in that world. Because I can fix your kid, but if you don't know how to deal with them, you're going to keep breaking them. But now what I've done is I've actually expanded that. So now I teach courses that you can legally come out of it and practice overseas. And so one, we teach you how to become an autistic or neurodiverse specialist based solely on neurology. And it's all about different forms of integrative and behavioral therapies, how to look at the wiring of the brain and readjust and create that neuroplasticity, helping them with different movements and explaining things at a different level to understand what does hungry feel like. So they understand what it means when they're hungry. To now, I do a bunch of interviews. I work with different governments helping build and change regulations. What people don't understand and realize is that there are no actual regulations in place for autistic centers in the United States. There's nothing, basically, it's a version of a daycare is the way that they're set up. We're working on changing that standard. You know, teaching parents how to work with their kids instead of just locking them in a room, which is the go-to, and understand what eloping is and what a temper tantrum and a meltdown, which are two different things. I do seminars, I do support groups. We have both virtually and in person support groups for one, not families with special needs, or I like to call them challenged kids, because it doesn't matter if they have a label. The label is irrelevant. We look at what the challenges are and help guide you to understand how to overcome those challenges based on your strengths. And then we have separate ones for PTSD and extreme trauma.
Now, let's talk about your radio show and being the host of the Skylar Network Power Hour. Please share with our audience on what your radio show is about and how many years has it been on the air?
So, Optimize My Life, which used to be called the Hope Collection, has been on for 20 years. We've just changed platforms. And so we've added some more shows to the link. And so what Skylar does and a couple other shows on there is we talk and highlight businesses and organizations and individuals that are trying to make the world a better place. And it's all about uplifting and showing how if you follow the mission, you follow what God's put in place for you and not focus on the money will follow. It's always mission first. And the more you give, the more you get back. And then with Autistically Speaking, we do a whole series. We talk about autism and neurodiversity. We break down what the president and RFK have said. We look at all the new research that comes out and break them down for you to understand and separate the fact from fiction. And then we help guide parents through different techniques. It's different things depending on the day.
Hmm. Now, what had inspired you to do the radio show?
One, I suck at video. I can do interviews like this. I cannot sit in front of a camera by myself and talk. I just feel like I'm talking to myself. I'm just not good at it. And the thing is that it honestly didn't even cross my mind until back during COVID, I created a post about the coaching industry and about how it became really about money and not about helping. And someone saw it that should never have seen it because it ended up being on someone's profile that I had no affiliation with, no connections, no friends similar, nothing. And he sent me a message and asked me if I wanted to guest on his radio show. And so the president of the organization was on when I did my interview talking about what I do and about autism. And he goes, "Can you want to come on a few other shows? Because they have different shows different times of the week." And I'm like, "Sure." And so I ended up guesting on a few different shows. And then they actually offered me to help them build it. And now it's been my pet project.
Hmm. Have you gotten so many positive comments or people come to you and say, thank you for doing the radio show?
I have. We are actually one of my favorite shows. We do a special for 9/11, and we break down and we talk about 9/11. We do it in a respectful manner. And we ended up with a caller that called in from India, who was originally from England, whose daughter was in the Trade Center.
Hmm.
And it was the first time he ever fully spoke about it publicly and to share his story publicly. Granted, I was crying. I called my buddy. I'm like, you need to jump on here because I'm losing it here. But, we do like Wake Up Reveille where we talk to military and we break down transition and purpose. And we get a lot of feedback. My shows are based on feedback. So if there's a particular topic that you want, or if there's a particular show you're looking for, if you can't find something, we'll add it. Everything I do is based on request. It makes life so much easier because I don't have to come up with ideas.
Right. Speaking of 9/11, I was working at CBS. Right now, I'm a former Viacom CBS Paramount employee, and I once worked at the BlackRock headquarters at 51 West 52nd Street in New York City. I remember that day. I was just coming in from voting, primary election, and when I heard on the radio, we had Gem and 105.1 NYC at around 8:48. We heard on the news that the first plane hit, and 20 minutes later, the second plane had hit. And we had to lock up everything. We had to
Hmm.
stay in the building until further notice. So after we left around around 3:30, and I was just getting ready to take the express bus, but then I've heard someone said the express bus wasn't running. You mean to tell me that the express bus wasn't running and I gotta take the subway
There
going
was no
home?
subway.
Ugh. Because what happened was the subways were running, but the express bus wasn't running. And I had to go all the way up to the Bronx. I take the number 5 train, the MTA subway, all the way up, going home. So when I was watching the TV, everything was canceled. Sporting events was
Hmm.
canceled. They even had to cancel the primary elections until further notice. And then when I was going to work the next day, I was on the subway. When I got to East 180th Street, there was a lady who was getting ready to sit next to me. And I asked her, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I'm feeling fine. I'm just trying to get over the trauma from 9/11." But then 2 days later, I got a call from my late mother and saying that one of our cousins, that includes the cousin that I haven't met yet, he just turned 11 years old in August of 2011. And he was on his way to LA to get an award from National Geographic. He gotten straight A's. So this is my first time. Um, didn't know my cousin. I've never met him. He was one of the casualties that was leaving from Washington, D.C. on his way to L.A. and the plane crashed in the Pentagon. So the following week, my church had a prayer vigil. We had said all of our friends and relatives who were victims of 9/11, whether they're in Pennsylvania. And my former CBS co worker, she didn't come in the next day because her brother was a co pilot on United Airlines Flight 93, leaving from New York on his way to LA, and it ended up in Shawshanksville,
Hmm.
PA. And then by 2006, Universal Pictures did a movie called Flight 93,
Hmm.
and the proceeds from that movie went to all of the families who've lost their loved ones on Flight 93. So every 9/11, when Kiss FM was still on in 2002, they did message music. They were playing songs all day on 9/11, not just gospel songs from Hezekiah Walker and Kirk Franklin, but also message music. You had Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson, and also Gamble and Huff's Philadelphia International Records label. And their slogan was, "There's a message in our music, there's a message in our song. So get your information from the sounds of communication." They had all the songs that were done from the OJs to Teddy Pendergrass, the Three Degrees, and everybody. So they carry out message music. So, in other words, you got Sunday morning gospel, but you need something to uplift you and get you through the work week. So, that's something I've always carried me every single 9/11. So, I just did season 2 of message music on my podcast, but it was audio and I was playing music. I was the DJ and talking
Hmm.
and everything. And you know, every time when 9/11 hits, I pray, "Please get me to my destination. Please get me home safely." You know, terrorism is still on the rise, even up to this day. When you mention ICE, You know, every day I pray that we will all live in peace. In other words, let's get to know each other, get to know our neighbors, get to know each other's cultures, diversities, nationalities. And for the Bible says, love thy neighbor. So I usually talk to my former CBS coworker who's a telephone lady. So it's always saying, if you're saying love thy neighbor, so if you're telling me I'm supposed to love everybody, that means people of other color too,
Hmm.
whether they are black, Latino, Asian, Caribbean, Haitian, Native American, Indian, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities. Because what you're seeing now in the present administration, they're mocking fun at everybody, the name calling. And if the administration will come to you, they would do the name calling to your kids as well. And when I see it every single day, it really hurts
It
when,
reminds me of either two parents get a divorce,
mm-hmm,
or, and I I had a discussion with a buddy who's was in the military too. It's like the military is now the kids in the middle of a divorce battle, and we're using it to go after each other.
right,
And that's the sad part. It's like two kids in a playground, and we don't shut up and listen at all. Nobody listens. Everyone has to
right,
talk louder, or and I'm so tired of hearing the excuse, well, they did this. Are we five? Really? We're going back to they did this, so I'm going to do this. You're supposed to be an example. You wonder why our
right.
population is the way it is. Y'all
Yeah,
need to
and yeah, and
grow
like
up.
me growing up, who did that? He started it. She started it.
And
And
what
it's like,
happened? Your mom came
yeah.
back behind you and smacked you both in the back of the head and told you to knock it off.
Hmm. And same thing with the grown folks. Every time I've been going to food pantries ever since I was laid off in 2024. And by the time I was getting ready to look for my paycheck and everything got messed up, I'm going to these food pantries. And I've seen grown folks. It's like you're supposed to be online and you out of the line and you're like here and there. It's like every time I see grown folks online for food pantries are not acting like real grown folks. And just like you
No.
said, you got kids looking up to you. You're supposed to be setting an example for them because the kids are watching,
Mm-hmm.
and when they see you, out of line and you're not setting an example, because when I get online, I stay online because when I was raised, when my mom always says, you stay online, you don't get out of the line, you don't go get nothing, you stay put until you get what you got to get. And one of the
You
people
move
was
your
saying, like,
seat, you lose your seat.
mm-hmm. And it's like saying, yo, I'll be back in a few minutes, hold my spot. And I don't see you in 20 minutes. When I get what I got to get, you schmooze, you lose. And you're setting a bad example for many others because you got other people, they need some pantries as well. So as an example, I show respect for other people, but if you're not showing respect for yourself and think about the others that need stuff online, that's showing a bad example.
That and the other thing that bugs me the most about it is like the family. You get the brother, the three adults in one household standing in line separated. So they're all getting, mass quantities of stuff, so there's not enough room, enough food for everybody.
Mhm. Yes, yes, indeed. Now, here's a question that I always ask my guests: living or dead, which artist or group you wish you wanted to meet or have them be a guest on your show?
For me, I have two. One is Elvis Presley, and the other one is the Righteous Brothers.
Mm, all righty. Now, Here on the Black Soul Music Experience, I always ask my guests who are the favorite top 10 R&B songs of all time. But since this is a special episode, since I have you, Mary, we're going to be doing the Black Soul Music Experience top 10 songs with social message. Now, here's how it works. We do it like a top 10 countdown, like the show, America's Top 10, hosted by the late Casey Kasem, and we
Hmm.
will find out what were some of the best songs that had the best radio airplay. So, in other words, did that song receive some top 10? Uh, that song had a number one hit that stayed either like for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even 5 weeks. Did that artist who performed that song, did that song had a gold or platinum or double platinum or triple platinum? Did that artist who performed that song, whether it's on American Bandstand or Soul Train or The Midnight Special or NBC's Saturday Night Live or Solid Gold, or did they perform that song in the music video, whether it was aired on BET or MTV or VH1? Or did they perform that song on their own special, whether they had it on CBS or NBC or ABC? Or did they perform that song on PBS, whether it's great performances or just that special during Pledge Month? Or did they had that special aired on HBO or Showtime live? So I'm going to start off with mines and then I'll let you go next.
Hmm.
So here's my top 10 songs that is dealing with social messages, whether it's dealing with the war or many other situations. So number 10, I had to put down Ballad of the Green Berets by Sergeant Barry Sadler. And I would never knew that this was the first time I hear a song written by a person who's serving in the military, showing, for example, how to protect the country and the world. So I put down Ballad of the Green Berets by Sergeant Barry Sadler at number 10. Number 9, Bring the Boys Home by Miss Frida Payne. This song came out in 1971 at a time when all of our men and women were serving in Vietnam, while you have those protesters are saying, enough with Vietnam, bring the boys home. And that was a top 10 hit, on black radio. So I put that at number 9. Number 8, So Many Tears by hip hop artist Tupac Shakur. And this song has to deal with mental illness because in real life, he had to go through so much of that trauma after his parents were divorced and daddy wasn't there, that type, and dealing with her mother, who was a member of the Black Panther Party. So he had to go through all those situations. So I put So Many Tears by Tupac at number 8. Number 7, Skyscraper by Miss Demi Lovato. And that song has to deal with drug addiction and eating disorders because in real life, when I saw her in that PSA, she was a victim of bullying and, yes, got to go through all that addiction and depression and eating disorders. So that happened to her in real life. So we'll put Skyscraper by Demi Lovato at number 7. Number 6, here's one of my favorites, Toy Soldiers by
Mm.
Martika. And this was from her self titled debut LP on the Columbia CBS label. And that album and single was released back in 1988. The song went to number 1 back on July 22nd, 1989, for 2 weeks. When I first heard the song Toy Soldiers, I thought it was like, those little toys,
Hmm.
you know, growing up. But then when I found out later about that song was dealing with drug addiction. I was like, drug addiction? Is that what the song was about? Not those little toys? And when I first saw that music video on YouTube, I was like, oh, so that was the song was about because she wrote that because one of her friends had a drug problem. So
And the
I
scary part was is she was only 15.
hmm
And
yes.
then it became number one again when she partnered and came back and re-released it with Eminem.
Yes. So we'll put Toy Soldiers by Martika at number 6. Number 5, What's Going On by the late Marvin Gaye. And this song came out in time during the Vietnam War. And this was a song that came out in 1971 when Berry Gordy Jr., founder and president of Motown Records, found out that he was doing a protest album. Barry Gordy Jr. has said, "Why you want to do a protest album? You should be doing a love song album." But Marvin has a story to tell because his brother was serving in Vietnam, problems with the black community, and dealing with police brutality. And that song, when it first came out in 1971 on Motown's Tamla label, it was on the soul charts for 5 weeks. Came out on March 27th, 1971. And let me tell you, that song became a powerful testament. And what had resonated back in 1971 it still resonates today. So we'll put What's Going On by the late Marvin Gaye at number 5. Number 4, Give Me Shelter by the Rolling Stones. And this came out in 1968. This was dealing with the realities of war and what's been happening in Vietnam. So we'll put Give Me Shelter by the Rolling Stones at number 4. Number 3, Give Peace a Chance by the late John Lennon. And he wrote that song once again in a time during Vietnam. So it was a top 10 hit, and I got a chance to see the music video. And then they redid that again and during Operation Desert Storm.
Hmm.
So I saw the music video on MTV. They had Cyndi Lauper, Sebastian Bach. They had LL Cool J, A Tribe Called Quest, Hammer, just to name a few. And at the end of the song, we saw the real video of
Hmm.
John Lennon and Yoko Ono. So we'll put Give Peace a Chance by John Lennon at number 3. Number 2, For What It's Worth, or should I say, Stop Children, What's That Sound? Everybody look what's going round, by Buffalo Springfield. And Stephen Stills was on lead. And this song came out on Atlantic's Atco label back in December 1966. It was a top 10 hit. It was at number 7 on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts in March of 1967. And that song was later used in their movie Born on the 4th of July, starring Tom Cruise. So we'll put For What It's Worth by Buffalo Springfield at number 2. And at number 1, the song War by the late Edwin Starr. And that was on Motown's Gordy label. And that song went to number 1 on Billboard's Hot 100 Pop Singles charts on August 29th, 1970 for 3 weeks. So still resonates what has happened, and it still resonates today. So I put War by the late Edwin Starr at number 1. So there you have it. That's my top 10 of songs that is dealing with social issues. So Mary, do you have any of yours?
So I do. So my number 10 was Waterfalls from TLC. And it's about making the right choices. It's about empowering to be able to get out of a bad relationship. You don't need to be that pretty face. You don't need to suck into everything to be with someone in order to just be with somebody. It's okay to be on your own. Number 9 is one of my all-time favorites growing up, and it was also part of Coke for a long time. And it's I like to teach the world to sing with the New Seekers. And it's, all about unity, all about peace. It's about, that harmony that we can accept. We just choose not to. Um, And actually, number 8 for me was actually my theme song for Monday for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and that is "We Shall Overcome," which became the anthem for Martin Luther King. But the cool thing is, a lot of people don't understand and realize this. Yes, it's a big, civil rights anthem, but when the Berlin Wall came down, they sang that song,
Mm,
and they paid homage to Martin Luther King because he went over there and he talked to them and he explained how his name originally wasn't Martin, it was Marshall. And when his dad went over to Germany, right when Hitler got into power, they went with some educational thing for church, that he was so moved by Martin Luther's story and what he did that he came home and changed him and his son's name. And
mm,
so when he went over to Berlin, he sat and talked to them and explained, I am part of you, you're part of me. We may be different, but we're not. And so when they tore down the Berlin Wall, that's what they sang.
mm,
Let's see here. Tupac, keep your head up. It's about resilience. And, there's so many times that in the past 10 years that I've had to remind myself to not give up and just keep up. And for him to go through what he went through, 10 times worse than what I've ever gone through, it's always resonated. Let's see. Number 6 was "I Swear" by All for One. And it's all about the importance of relationships and that we are not an island. We need each other. The one thing we learned from COVID was you can't live in isolation. And it reminds me it's okay to ask for help. Bend in Knee, Boys to Men, and just your inner resilience and your faith. Faith is a big part of our household and who I am. Number 4 is "We Are the World" by USA for Africa. The whole global unity. And of course, the anthem that plays on every girly show, "Respect" by Aretha Franklin. Um, one of my son's favorite songs for me that we have going all the time is "Lean on Me." It was number 2 for us.
mhm,
And finally, number 1 was "Man in the Mirror." And with Michael Jackson, this song, it always reminds us to look at ourselves and take responsibility for action. And that's where we're struggling as a society now, is we're blaming everybody else.
mm. Okay. Yeah. So those are some of those good choices you put on there, Mary. Well, Mary, thank you so much for being here on the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And as I said in the intro, when I was thinking about you all year and unalignable, and we were put in those chat rooms and we look at each other just like we're talking to
Mhm.
each other right now. You've been through all the pain and suffering. And as a former Viacom CBS Paramount
Mhm.
employee, I've been in the corporate media for 35 years, and especially when we had to get packages on the way. And I've been through those terrible tragedies, everything from 9/11 to the beating of Rodney King to COVID, through the death of George Floyd, and right now we're dealing with Israel fighting with Palestine and Gaza and ICE. I lived all those years working at CBS. When we have breaking news, got to get that package across town. So that's what we have all stood for. And yes, even comedy shows that had a social issue. So when we hear something on the news, television, answer the call. I always think about Bud York and then Norman Lear, who brought us
Tyler
All in the
Perry.
Family. Yes, and Tyler Perry too. They always bring something to uplift us, to inspire us, to move us.
Um,
And
Family
yes,
Matters.
yes, family matters. That's a spinoff from Perfect Strangers. So every time I see Family Matters, I'll think of Urkel.
Yes.
Every time they go over to the house, Urkel breaks something. He said, "Can I do
It
that?"
always blew my mind when you saw him in everyday clothes out of the Urkel look. How Hollywood can make someone so pretty, so ugly, and vice versa.
Yes, and everything. So, again, thank you so much for being here. And, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this episode not only entertain you, but also educate. And I hope you jot some notes down. And I hope this brings you some closure and peace. So, Mary, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It was an honor
And
being here. Thank you for having me.
and let's keep in touch. So let's continue doing that. Now, before we go, where can we follow you on social media, and give us a quick plug on your organization for those that may need help?
So I offer my services free to survivors and families affected by 9/11. I was actually part of search and recovery of 9/11, so I know what it's like, and I've been there, done that, and so I help them out. But you can find me on social media, either Mary Stanley or Supportive Minds. I am everywhere, and reach
Okay.
out. I love talking to people. I love answering questions. There's really no dumb question. I've heard them
Yes.
all.
Hmm. There's always help. And again, thank you so much. Download all of the songs with a social message from all your favorite artists that we have talked about on this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Visit iTunes.com, Spotify.com, or purchase a CD at Amazon.com. And ladies and gentlemen, if you or someone you love has been going through every situation, like my guest Mary Stanley on my episode, and if you served in the military or not served in the military, and if you have any family members or children who suffers from mental illness, autism, or many other things, I urge you to please do not be silent. Don't wait till it's too late. Best thing to do is to get help right now. So make sure you go to Mary Stanley's website. Make sure you look for her on Facebook at official Mary Stanley, and also look for her at linkedin.com/ Mary Stanley Supportive Minds. As we always say here, not only we're here to entertain you, but also educate, because music play a part in social issues. And I say it again, thank you for all of those who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces, whether it's you served in the Army, Navy, or Air Force, or Marines, or Coast Guard, or National Guard. Thank you for your service, and we thank you for protecting us. And special shout out to my paternal cousin Coochie. Coochie, thank you for your service. And to all of my church members from my church, Community Protestant Church in the Bronx, New York, those who have served in the military, thank you for your service, and thank you for protecting us. As I say again, don't wait till it's too late. Make sure you get help ASAP. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out this episode, please subscribe to the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. Look for me on these 5 platforms. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And the link is riverside.fm/studio/Samuel Wilson Jr.'s. Don't forget to add the S at the end, dash studio. And I will be posting this episode on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you have a hard time getting on to riverside.fm, then please become a member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience podcast. You got a computer? Use your email address and your password. Go to the Patreon homepage where you see all of the Patreon shows done by different creators. and go to the search box and type in the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Check out all of my audio and video podcast episodes from season 4 and for this season, season 5. And check out all the video podcast clips that you may have missed. And if you have a hard time getting on to patreon.com, then I will be posting this episode on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. All you need to do is go to the YouTube homepage, type in the search box, and type in the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. If you like this episode, if you love my podcast, please subscribe, please support, please give me a thumbs up, please leave a comment, and please pass it on. Thank you for joining me as I close out this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience.
Well, that's about it for this edition of the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. I'm Sam Wilson Jr. Thank you for joining me, and please tune in next week for an all-new episode. The Black Soul Music Experience Podcast is sponsored by the support of listeners and viewers like you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. Look for my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pocket Cast. And don't forget the link. The link is riverside.fm/studio/Samuel-Wilson Jr.'s-studio. And don't forget to check out my audio and video podcast episodes by becoming a member and subscribe to patreon.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. And please check out my video podcast episodes by subscribing to youtube.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. And please leave your comments, feedbacks, and replies by going to my Facebook homepage. Go to facebook.com/the Black Soul Music Experience Podcast. You can also tweet me on X, aka Twitter, at Sam Wilson Jr. 66, and follow me on Instagram at SAMM.Y2980. As always, partying, remember this: reach for the top and your dreams will come true, and it can happen to you. From all of us, take care. God bless. Thanks for listening. Have a good week, and please be safe.